Folks, we're going to start in about 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Good evening, everybody. We're here for the Public Services Subcommittee meeting scheduled for 6:45 p.m. in the Wigan Auditorium, September 12th, 2024. The subject matter at hand is the Granite Road Mountain Terrace project. We have several residents and the DPS director here to answer questions and tell us a little bit about the project. I think most councilors were here when we initially discussed the project, I think 4 years ago. With that, I'll defer to Councilor Welton.
Thank you, Chairman Turco. In regards to this public hearing, I'd like to make a motion to receive item late 1. So move.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Councilor Turco. Also, Mr. Delp was kind enough to send some photos along that. So this is what I left on every other councilor's desk is a reproduction of what we got in late 1. So just from a high level, both Councilor Turco and I, especially Councilor Turco over the last few years, prior to me coming onto the council, have been trying to work with Mr. Delp and with his neighbor, Mr. Williams, to find an opportunity to reduce a significant flooding issue that's been happening on Granite Road for many, many years. DPS has been working with us to try to find solutions to mitigate that problem, and there was a lot of work done. For those of you that are familiar with that area in South Peabody, there's a lot of work done over the last few years, and unfortunately the Delps and the Williams family are still dealing with significant flooding every time it rains. There's erosion to the front, their frontage on the road, and really today we just wanted to have an opportunity for Mr. Delp and Mr. Williams to kind of let us know what's going on there a little bit. We've been in constant communication with Will Politz and DPS, and they've been very helpful to try to find a solution that could work. So we just want to take this opportunity today to hear from them and then hear from Will about any opportunities that we can rectify this situation for them once and for all. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Welton. I neglected to mention all councils are here, but the committee members for this committee, Councilor Gamache, Councilor Manning Martin, Councilor Melville, and Councilor Welton. At the inception of the discussion of this project, Councilor Gould and Councilor Rossignol, and then Councilor Welton were present at the initial discussions about the project. And that's just for informational for those on the council, because they may have some more intimate knowledge of that. With that, does any council have an objection to me introducing Mr. Delp to the podium? And seeing no objection, Mr. Delp has an audio recording of what is exactly written in his letter. He just thought it would be easier for him to play the audio of that letter, but it's what we received. With that, Mr. Delp, if you could come up to the podium. Just press the red button. Oh, the button on the right, I should say.
Good evening. My name is William Delp. I've lived at 13 Granite Road for the past 57 years. And for 57 years, we've been dealing with some water issues. They've been corrected for many years, and they popped up again when they did some new additions to Granite Road Extension. I've passed out a pass-out sheet of my thoughts and some pictures of what we're dealing with, and instead of for me to try to read it and fumble through it, I've got it recorded here, and if you got any questions, I'll answer them afterwards. "3 years ago, the city addressed the street flooding issue by adding additional catch basins. They also installed a larger pipe for a large brook that goes under Granite Road and under the properties of 13 Granite Road and 15 Granite Road. They had a couple of engineering companies draw up plans to solve the flooding. The plan they went with consisted of a large tank placed beneath Granite Road, with the idea if the project did not cure the flooding issue, they would go from that tank to Brown's Pond with a 30-inch pipe. So far, we haven't had the type of rain to test a new system to see if it handles the heavy downpours. The issue we have now is the tank was not buried deep enough. Once they put the lid on it and the water drain grate in, it's higher than the street around it, and no water goes in the grate. It all flows across the yard and ponds up in the yard at 15 Granite Road. I suggested adding a catch basin about 4 or 5 feet from the tank at the low spot. Bore a hole in the side of the tank and pipe from the catch basin into the tank. The city wants to pave the street and raise it up so the water will go in the drain. The problem is the tank is 4 inches higher now than the driveway at 13 Granite Road. Raising the street would put all the water into the driveway at 13 Granite and then flow into the yard of 15 Granite. The water would wind up in the same place as it does now, but we'll get there a different way. Picture 1 shows water running down Granite Road in front of 13 Granite. This water comes from Hillside Avenue and Granite Road. Those 2 roads have no useful catch basins to reduce the water flow. Picture 2 shows how the water puddles up between 13 and 15 Granite Road at a low point. Then it flows into the yard at 15 Granite Road. At this low point is where there was a catch basin before the tank went in. At that time, there was no puddling issues. Picture 3 shows the tank that was installed not deep enough, causing the issue. The hole to the far left is an inlet from the catch basins on Granite Road Extension, Rockaway Road, Mountain Terrace, and the brook that is piped under Granite Road. The hole on the far right has a plug in it now that is where the pipe to Brown's Pond will go if needed. The hole in the wall on the front was installed incorrect. It was plugged and they drilled a new hole to the left of that one at the same height as the hole in the far left. That gets water from Hillside Avenue, Mountain Terrace, Granite Road, and the brook that is piped under Granite Road. The hole in the back is the exit pipe that goes to the wetland behind 13 Granite Road. If they could bore a hole for a 30-inch pipe in the front for an inlet, I don't know why they can't bore an 18-inch hole for an additional catch basin. Putting a catch basin back where it was before that handled the water without flooding the yard at 15 Granite Road, I believe would be the easiest and cheapest way that should correct the flooding of the yard at 15 Granite Road. Picture 4 shows the grate on the tank and its relationship to the driveway at 13 Granite. I used a laser level to get the correct height of the grate. It is 4 inches higher than the driveway at 13 Granite. Raise the road to put it higher than the grate would put the driveway at the lowest point. All the water would go into the driveway and from there into the yard at 15 Granite Road. I don't believe raising the road would cure the problem. Another option, put a catch basin in at the lowest spot and connect it with a Y to the pipe that exits the tank going to the wetland. That is it. If you have any questions of...
Thank you, Mr. Delp. With that, I'll open it up to the committee members if anybody has a question for Mr. Delp, unless we'd rather hear from Mr. Politz first. That's probably the best idea. Mr. Politz, if you wouldn't mind approaching the podium. For the knowledge of the residents, the Williams family, the Delp family, Mr. Politz is the DPS director here in Peabody.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here this evening. As John said, I'm William Politz, Director of the Department of Public Services. And John, thank you for handing me this letter. It is the first time that I've seen it, so I've not had a chance to read through it. I did hear the audio, but I can't say I heard it fully, just due to the acoustics. But yes, I can sort of walk the council through this. This project took place prior to me taking over the department as the director. As most everyone knows, I have been here for a number of years as city engineer. This particular project was not in my field house when it came through. This was handled by the previous director and the environmental engineer, Bill Stansfield, and the firm World Tech, which has now been taken over as Time Bond. So from my understanding, it appears that this project went in to alleviate some extensive flooding that was taking place in this neighborhood, which I would have to go through the letter or ask Mr. Delp. I am not sure if we had a significant rainstorm since that to test the system fully, but it seems to be intact and functioning in respect to it should be able to handle the flow that would be coming in from upstream through Mountain Terrace. I believe the question here tonight is, it looks like the vault is, the catch basin for the vault itself is higher than you would want in respect to, it seems to be having issues, having surface flow getting to the catch basin and then draining into the vault and then ultimately into the system. It appears to be the issue. We took a look at the vault. The vault is pretty substantial, so I think trying to adjust the elevation of the vault I don't think is realistic. I don't think you're going to be able to disconnect these pipes, pull the vault out, excavate down an extra inch and try to get this back in. I don't think it's going to, I just think the logistics, the finance, and the chance that you're going to end up with a better project, I don't think exists. I think we looked at seeing if we could lower the catch basin structure. So they ultimately put a catch basin structure right on top of the vault. Generally speaking, we'd be able to adjust those elevations because in most situations you would use literally brick and do a layer, 1 or 2 layers thick of brick, and then you can make an adjustment. That does not exist on top of this vault. The other item we looked at, we were hoping, is that they used a standard frame for a catch basin, and then we could swap that out for a low profile frame. But unfortunately, a low-profile frame was installed as part of this project. So to lower the actual structure or the grate on top of that is not something that we could actually accomplish. I think tonight's the first time I'm hearing Mr. Delp's concept. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he's looking to see if we could install a catch basin and then tie that back into the vault by coring into the vault. So tonight's the first time I've heard of it. I mean, we could always take a look at that's feasible. There's a couple things we'd have to consider there. The pitch of the catch basin, where we're installing the catch basin, and if there's any utility crossings. But I think that logistically we'd have to see, structurally if the vault can take another coring, because this would not be cored at the manufacturer. This is going to be cored out in the street, so it's a little bit different. So I think we'd have to investigate, I think structurally, if the vault could take this additional hole. Obviously, this vault has to be H20 loading because, if the neighbors have a fuel, home heating fuel delivery, we can't have a compromised vault in the street.
Thank you. The second suggestion on the same line from Mr. Delp was to Y in to the pipe coming out of the vault into a catch basin if boring into the vault wasn't possible. But you have that in the document.
I'm sorry, what was the second concept,
The
John?
second suggestion was an additional catch basin at the lowest point on the street, which would then Y into the pipe exiting the current vault as it is, rather than boring into the vault.
Sure. So I don't think we would entertain doing a Y there if we were to go that route. I think we would put a manhole structure in and have that come in through a manhole. We are definitely trying to get away from any like Y connections because once they get buried, they're lost. And it's, yes, we can document it, but it becomes problematic. But I understand the second question as well.
Thank you. With that, I'll open it up to the committee members. Anybody have a question, suggestion, anything they'd like to add? Councilor Rossignol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Politz. When was the last time you went out to the site, or have you been out since the new basin has been laid?
Sure. I've been out there twice recently, specifically due to this issue. The first time was probably August after John had brought this to my attention. Then more recently, I want to say was Tuesday of this week, I believe was the day I was out there with Bill Stansfield reviewing everything. Like I said, I'm not sure. I can't say that this system has been fully tested into how much stormwater we've had. I do believe that this system will definitely provide relief to this neighborhood. I mean, I don't see why this head wall would not channelize the flow that was probably surface flow, and why that wouldn't channelize it into this pipe. There's certainly additional capacity of pipes because they didn't actually just replace pipes, they paralleled pipes, so they left the existing infrastructure in place and it added additional pipes, ran it to this vault. So I do believe this vault in the system should work for large storms. I mean, you never know if it backs up. I think the area that you would see a issue would be coming out of the catch basin of the vault itself. I think that's where you would see your first signs of issues if we were to have an issue. I think it seems that, if I'm not mistaken, the primary concern at this point is more the small rain events are not able to gravity flow, surface flow to the top of this vault's catch basin, and that they're most likely pooling in front of Mr. Delp's driveway would be my guess, and in the associated yard, because it can't get to the vault. So I could be mistaken, but I think we're talking smaller rain events that are causing the issue, and then we're not talking catastrophic ones at this point.
Thank you. Any other councilors? Councilor McGinn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not in the committee, but appreciate you allowing me to chime in on this through you to Director Politz. Director Politz, you mentioned that there was an outside third party involved in this tie-in bond, I guess now. Do we have the bandwidth in-house to evaluate these potential solutions, or is this something you need to go out for again to a third party? Is this something we have the wherewithal to evaluate from an engineering standpoint in-house? And if so, what would be a reasonable time frame for folks to expect some kind of feedback on the feasibility of these suggestions?
Sure, those are two good questions. Coring into the vault would definitely be going out to tie and bond to take a look, because they would have to have their structural engineer determine if that's viable or not. That's definitely something we would not be able to do in-house, so we could contract with them. to take a look at that. They're certainly more than capable of it. We are working with them on the square in respect to the structural, the ability to structurally core into the culvert in the square, so that's something they could definitely handle within their abilities, but that would be something we'd have to send out. The other item, I mean, to put in a manhole structure there, I think that may be something in-house, but it wouldn't be something we could probably do in-house. That would have to be contracted out, and we'd have to have design specs that are pretty tight so that we don't leave ourselves open to change orders from a contractor coming in. But you're talking, I think it's a 30-inch pipe if I'm not mistaken, so I do not believe our department would be able to cut into the pipe and insert a 4-foot drain manhole structure, install it in, and tie back in a 30-inch pipe. That would not be something our department would be able to do. They'd have to be contracted out, and my concern with that would be, as I said, we'd have to have some tight specs, or I think we would definitely be open ourselves up to the possibility of a contractor coming in and then producing change orders and then seeing this price of this project escalate due to that. When could we have a turnaround time for information on those two? I think a month would be a fair time to have Time Bond take a look at this. And I mean, I think that with that, I think that would be a more of a cursory look from a 30,000 foot elevation, not plans or anything. But I think we could have a turnaround time to see what the viability is and the cost. I mean, everything comes with a cost, I guess. I would say 30 days plus, we should have a rough estimate of what this would entail.
Thank you, Mr. Pollitt. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I mean, to add one other item, we could certainly take a look at trying to pave a situation, you know, if we were to not reclaim the road, but it would not be a standard milling job. Usually, as most councils know, if we go out and mill 1.5 inches, we just go ahead and put back 1.5 inches. We could take a look to see if this is something that could be paved out as a paving project for the road itself. Obviously, we'd have to work with Mr. Delp and his concerns about making sure that we're not causing an issue for his property if we were to pave this out, but that's another option, so to see if this is something that could be fixed by milling and then adding additional fill into the road itself with asphalt.
Thank you. Councilor Gamache.
Yes, thank you. And I apologize for not going out there this week to take a look at it, but I have a question. When was this installed?
This was installed in late 2021 it started, and it wrapped up early 2022. So it was the winter of 21-22 this was installed.
Okay, was it an in-house job or was it contracted out?
This is a substantially large job. It was contracted out, I believe.
To who?
Cardillo and Sons.
Cardillo and Sons?
Cardillo and Sons, yeah.
Because looking at it from just this picture, and again, I apologize for not going out and looking at it, but anybody could see that it was higher than the street. Now, do we review these after they're done? We must, right?
I can't speak to how this was handled. I wasn't.
Because we put this box in, this vault, to correct the runoff problem. And if you put a box in that's too high to the original street, you're not going to garner any of that water. It just doesn't work that way. It's got to be lower so that the water drains into a certain position. Am I correct?
Right. So I think the box itself, I mean, I believe it was primarily designed for significant rain, significant storms.
Okay,
but the catch basin, but they put I think the topic this evening is that they designed and installed a catch basin on top of the vault itself.
And this is what I'm trying to get to. Why would the city have allowed that to take place and put a catch basin that's higher than the existing street? The elevation is what determines the flow of water. And it's like putting a gallon of water in a pint, into a pint. You can't do it. So if you got the catch basin here and the street level here, it is not going to work. And my contention is we should have noticed that prior to allowing the contractor to get paid and leave. I mean, Will, you see these all the time, and I see it out in my areas in West Peabody, that the catch basins are higher than the street. And this, to me, is a screw-up by the contractor. And we should have been there to say, no, wait a minute, this is too high, and it's not going to catch water, and therefore, it's a moot point. Am I wrong with that, or is it just...
No, I don't think you're wrong in the fact that this was somehow, it definitely was installed higher than it should be by a few, I think we're talking an inch or two. I don't think we're certainly not talking feet by any.
I agree.
But it's still higher. I don't think it would have been an issue or noticeable, other than the fact you can see the vault physically out there.
Well, if you look at this picture number 2, you can clearly see that the street is lower than the catch basin.
Right, I was about to say, I don't think it would have been a noticeable issue or if the catch basins were installed, but because the catch basins were part of the design
Correct.
and
If the catch
installed,
basins, so
that lies the issue.
the design was approved by the city to put the catch basins above the vault.
This was a city project, yes.
Okay.
Yes, those are on the plan.
So why would the city, and I hate to, because I know you guys are busy and stuff like that, but it's just, to me, a follow-up, a simple follow-up would have been able to look at this and say, this elevation's too high, it's not going to catch water.
Right, I think it would have been time to catch it is when the contractor was installing it, so they would excavate down the material.
And excavate and to put
They
it
would
down
then
where it
have to
should be.
backfill and compact, and then they'd have to have the laser level out there to make sure that they're at the correct elevation to install the vault. But once the vault went in,
Excuse me for 1
Yes.
second before I forget my train of thought. When the vault was put in, did the contractor realize that there was going to be a catch basin placed on top of it?
it was in the plan, yes.
It was in the plan. So my theory is the contractor messed up by the depth of the vault because they didn't take into consideration, or they probably did, but their calcs were wrong, that it should have been lower than street level, and that vault should have been lower. And I hate to assume anything, but it seems to me that's what happened.
If that vault was lower, then yes, we could correct the situation by not having the low profile frame that the grate is installed on. We would have a traditional frame that could then be swapped off and put in a lower profile, and/or we'd have brick. But yes, it was installed at the height that it unfortunately was installed at. I can't say without going out there and we taking measurements if the plan was an issue or the contractor was the issue. But the other thing is they are also working with the coring locations. So as they set it, they also have to tie the pipe in.
I don't think coring's going to work. My own.
I think coring is going to be problematic. I don't think coring will be...
It's going to be expensive, too.
It'll be very expensive. I don't think coring will be the solution out here.
The other thing is, when they set the catch basin on top of the vault, did they utilize the level from the vault to the street level? In other words, did they use one standard brick or 2 standard bricks? Could we pop them and see if we can lower that catch basin into the vault and make it work?
Sure.
Without having to go through a big time expense to do that? Because I know when they do that, they put them on bricks. And they said, well, I know the manhole covers are done that way. They put bricks. You need a mason to do it. So did we investigate whether or not we could actually lower those grates into the vault without going through a big to-do to get everything straightened out? It would be a simple pick up the manhole covers and drop that elevation, and we'd be good to go.
Yes, I apologize if I didn't make myself clear. That was the first thing we investigated. There is no, it's not set on bricks, and it's not at traditional height.
It's on the vault?
It's on the vault, and it is the smallest one that you can purchase in respect to height. So it's not a traditional one that could be pulled out and put a low profile in. It's the low profile sitting directly on the vault, no bricks. I would
I know
not,
that-
I would not want to entertain trying to change the cover of the vault to get something.
And that's what I was going to say.
Because I think you're then, we obviously need to have this,
Would,
this isn't a street that takes,
have you contacted the people who made the vault to see if that could be cored to a point where you just subcore it maybe 2 inches around the hole that's already existing there, chip it out and drop it down?
I would probably be more interested, I guess, in backtracking on what I said to see if there is a more low-profile cover that could go on. I'd feel more comfortable getting a pre-manufactured cover. I would be very hesitant to try to core something out because at the end of the day, 15 years from now, if something were to happen, there's going to be a lot of finger pointing, and I think everyone's going to be gone except for the city. But we definitely need to maintain. This has to be structurally sound.
And I agree with you there, but what I'm suggesting is that you go to the manufacturer of the vault and see if they've had this problem before, depth of a manhole cover or a grate, and see if they've ever had to go in and not core, but chip away the outside, drop the level of the manhole cover down to make it fit with the street.
Right. I think if we were to entertain going down that route, we would ask the manufacturer to see if they could manufacture that at their plant, and then we'd have it installed. I don't think we'd want to go out and start doing that. As I said, I think we'd
Well,
because at the end of the day, the contractor that does it's going to be gone if we have an issue.
well, they're gone now already. So, I mean, we're not going to have them go back out there and fix the problem.
No, but I'm saying if, God forbid, we do this and then 7 years from now, the oil truck cracks through the vault.
And again, the contractor's still gone.
That's why I'm saying I would feel more comfortable buying a new cover from the
To the vault.
manufacturer that's built in a controlled environment.
So your
and then
suggestion would...
shipped, then shipped to, well, not shipped, but then picked up by a different contractor, and then the cover removed.
Okay, so what
a
you're...
new cover, a brand new one installed that would then be low profile versus a contractor going out there with a jackhammer or something smaller
and I agree with you
jackhammering down and saying, yeah, I think they said I could go down 2 1/4 inches. I think I got this.
Okay, so you answered my question. If you were to go back to the manufacturer of the vault
Yes.
and ask them if there is a structure that can go on the top of that would meet the criteria of the weight above the street that you're going to have these vehicles passing on, is there a thinner one or something that is made so that it can lower the whole top?
Yes.
So you put a brand new cover on there?
Yes.
Okay.
We can investigate that.
All right, because I think that would be the simplest solution instead of coring. You know how coring goes. If you're off the wrong level, you're screwed.
I think coring's problematic in a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
I think it would get
All right, thank you.
rejected quickly as a viable concept once we find out the logistics of it, the cost of it, and the likelihood that we're going to be successful with this.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Councilor Gamache. We're running about 5 minutes behind, so I'm going to go to Councilor Gould, and then we can kind of wrap things up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for making this a priority and continuing to stay on it, Mr. Chairman. The Delps and the Williamses has been through an awful lot, and I think it's good that we're doing this because they're not going anywhere, but the water keeps bothering it. So my question is, Mr. Delp, there was a lot of conversation that went on after you made your presentation. Do you need to, do they need to clarify anything with you, Mr. Delp? I don't know if you can hear because the acoustics aren't so hot.
Thank you, Councilor Gould.
I'm not an engineer, but my other thought I had on it is to find out if a good concrete cutter could come in and just take 8-10 inches or whatever needed to be cut off the top of the tank and just set the lid back down on it.
Okay, so there's another option, Mr. Politz. Did you hear that?
Mr. Politz.
I did. I think I would group that into the conversation that Councilor Gamache and I had. I don't think we would want to entertain having a third party come in and alter the top of this vault due to liability of it not being H20 loading. We would entertain, though, having the manufacturer itself do it at their plant under a controlled environment if they thought that would be successful.
All right, thank you, Mr. Politz. Thank you, Mr. Delp, Mrs. Delp, and the Williamses. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I just wanted to quickly add, the reason I called for the meeting, Council Walton's been working on this for upwards of a year with the Delps, and I more recently got back involved with it. But as we all know, this was $750,000 that was spent for the project. I understand Mr. Politz's point of we haven't had that substantial flooding to really test the capacity of the system, but we do know through smaller rainstorms that it doesn't catch those storms, which still creates a flooding issue. And it almost seems as though this is just a Delp-Williams issue. It's not. For those that were there 4 years ago, this was all of Mountain Terrace, this was all of Granite Road were flooded. Mr. Delp just happened to take the lead on this, so I don't want it to seem like this is just two residents that have an issue and the city decided to spend $1 million to fix it. This was a neighborhood-wide issue. So with that, Mr. Delp, I think Mr. Politz has all the information. I'm going to hold this in committee until probably our last meeting of October, our first meeting of November, to give Mr. Politz time to address some possible solutions to it. And then I will be in contact with you, or Councilor Welton, so that we can follow up with you on that. And if there's a need for another meeting, we will definitely have one. But hopefully, rather than have a meeting, we have a solution. So thank you all for coming, and councilors, thank you very much. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.